All right, this is our second video along the Dick Morgan alternate route. It was part of the John Hunt Morgan Heritage Trail. And this site is actually not mentioned in the book. If you're following the Dick Morgan alternate route, you will come into Georgetown on 125, which is right over there on the other side of that guardrail. But where we are standing, that's Georgetown right up there. Where we are standing is in the old Georgetown Cemetery. Now, this, again, it's not mentioned in the book, but this site is worth stopping at because there are some notable historic figures that are buried within this cemetery. I'm only going to touch on a couple of them. I got a story about a duel. And then another gentleman we want to talk about first is right here. And this is the Hamer obelisk. And you can tell it's a relatively large one. And I won't have all my details because I didn't do the research for this guy before I showed up today. However, Hamer is the gentleman that will write, or he'll get a U.S. grant, and I think it probably says here Thomas Lyon Hamer. This is to the memory of him, Speaker of the Ohio House of Representatives in 1828, Member of Congress in 1833 to 1839. He was reelected in 1846. He nominated U.S. Grant, a West Point cadet. Now, it's Hamer that will put Hiram Ulysses Grant's name as Ulysses Simpson Grant. So we can blame or credit this guy. But Hamer will serve as commander of the Ohio Volunteers during the Mexican War. And he is, I think dies of disease. That's what it is. Because the Battle of Monterey itself is in September of 1846. And you can see here he died at Monterey, Mexico, December 2nd of 1846. But he has a rather impressive obelisk here. He's a pretty noted Ohioan. There is a bio on Hamer. I don't think it's self-published, but it's by a very small print shop. And it's a small little paperback. It's actually a pretty good one. So I would recommend, if you have more interest in Hamer himself, picking that up. The cemetery does have a lot of Civil War guys buried here. And there's a couple of them that I do want to talk about. Both these men would serve as colonels during the Civil War. It's interesting, all these different markers. Here's a guy for Mexican or Spanish-American War right there. But there are, again, numerous Civil War guys in here. One of them was the colonel of the 59th Ohio Volunteer Infantry. The 59th was raised mostly from men in Brown and Claremont County. So I'm standing in Brown County now. Claremont County is to our east, and then on the other side of Claremont County is Hamilton County, where the city of Cincinnati is located. Now I need to get back here and clean this guy's marker because it's been a few years since I've been here to do this. But this is, right guy, James P. Fife. He will actually lead a brigade at Stones River. But Fife is kind of like, if you see his picture, he's kind of like this rascally looking mean guy. Like, he just looks mean. But he's a pretty effective field commander. He'll lead the 59th at Shiloh. Like I mentioned, he will lead a brigade at Stones River. He will fight along kind of the Asbury Church Road area on the afternoon of December 31st. Now, you will notice that his death date is January 5th of 1864. Fife will leave the 59th after Stones River, actually sometime in 1863. He comes home, he's suffering from illness. But during the Great Raid, he will organize a militia company or a militia unit to defend Georgetown and to keep Morgan's men away from town. Like I said, he dies January 5th of 1864. He's only 43 years of age. Now, Fife, prior to the war, had also served in the 1st Ohio Volunteer Infantry Regiment in the Mexican War. And he was a lieutenant. I want to say second or first lieutenant initially in his company. When a captaincy role came open, Fife thought that he deserved to have that particular rank. But it was not bestowed upon him. It was actually bestowed on Carr B. White. Now, those of you who study some Eastern Theater things may recognize that name as well. Now, White and Fife knew each other. They're both from Georgetown. As a matter of fact, prior to the war, Fife had rented property from White here in town because Fife was an attorney. I think White was as well. And White had some property here. And so Fife rented property to set up his law office here in Georgetown. These two men are at least on civil terms prior to the Mexican War. Well, Fife, when he does not get that captaincy of the company, the captain's rank, let me just do it that way, basically insults White, or maybe he feels like he's got his own reputation insulted, and challenges White to a duel. Okay, you got two men who know each other in Georgetown prior to the war, and Fife again is a little upset because he does not get the rank. White agrees to fight a duel. But if you're in Zachary Taylor's army in the 1840s, you don't duel. Taylor was heavily against dueling during the Mexican War, was heavily against that. So the two men, and White also, of course, served in the 1st Ohio. He was also in the same company, the company that comes here from Georgetown. And so they decide they're going to wait until the regiment is discharged or on its way back to Ohio after its 1 year of service, which it does. I'm going to turn here. Nice foggy morning, but you can see the Hamer Monument there. And so they're going to have a duel in New Orleans. They decide they're going to have that duel initially on the battleground of Andrew Jackson's victory in 1815. And White will buy a pair of heavy, large dueling pistols. Neither one of these men have ever dueled before. But they decide not to have it there. Now they're on the boat coming back up the Mississippi, and the boat has to pull off to obtain more fuel. And so these two men decide to go have their duel while the boat is refueling. Their seconds, their right-hand men, for lack of a better term, are two other men from the regiment, James Harrison and Ferdinand Vanderveer. Again, Chickamauga people will know that name for sure, as well as my friends who follow the 35th Ohio. They are their seconds. And the boat is all astir. The boat think, it's going to happen, because the word's been out, right? The word's gotten out these two men are going to have a duel. So these four, along with a couple others, go into the Arkansas woods. A shot or two is heard. You can't see it from the boat because the woods block. And these men come back out of the woods with their seconds, Vanderveer and with Harrison. And these two men, Carby White and our friend James P. Fife over there, come back arm in arm. Now, we don't know the details of what actually took place during the duel. Did they decide to shoot their pistols simply up into the air and just to satisfy honor? But they came back. And again, Fife would lead a militia unit during the Morgan raid. He will die early in 1864. White doesn't live too much longer himself. He dies in 1871 at age 48. So these two men are about the same age. They live here in Georgetown. They fight a duel against each other, and yet were probably friends, or at least business acquaintances prior to the war. So this is a cool little cemetery. It needs a little love, needs a lot of wet and forget, and a lot of D2 biological solution, that's for sure. And a lot of stones reset as well, because there are a lot of down stones, which is unfortunate. But it's a cool little cemetery. Again, we are right off where Dick Morgan's alternate route in the John Hunt Morgan Heritage Trail tour book is located. But just a really neat little spot to stop. With that, we're going to shoot our next video. Well, not really sure where, but keep your eye open. Thanks for watching, folks.